All right, I think we are about ready to begin. I'd like to say good morning and good afternoon to everyone on the East Coast. Just want to thank everyone who's attending. We have another great turnout for our latest webinar in the NIMBL lecture series, Charm Power, Leveraging SAP Solution Manager for Change and Release Management. I'm Jake Eisbart, part of the NIMBL marketing team. A little bit about us, NIMBL. We are SAP technologists and SAP ecosystem thought leaders. Our consulting business, which is, let me pull this up for you. Our consulting business, which is 50% of our work, delivers SAP projects, both technical and functional, while our Denver-based SAP Managed Services, the other 50%, supports both Fortune 500 and mid-market 24/7 across 20-plus SAP skill sets. Our projects tend to be technical in nature, HANA, UX, Solution Manager like today, and we likewise provide deliverable-based SAP functional business process and PMO services. And here is a quick list of all the services that we offer. Obviously today we will be focusing on Soulman. And in addition to that, here is a list of some of the customers that we worked with and are currently working with. Just a couple of housekeeping issues. We want to be able to answer as many questions and comments that you have, so please feel free to type them into the chat box at the bottom left, and we will respond to them at the end of the session. Okay, so let's start it up. Our speaker today is Steve Christian. Steve is the Solution Manager and Test Management Practice Lead at NIMBL with over 15 years of hands-on functional and technical expertise. He supported countless clients across a variety of industries for customers both Fortune 500 and mid-market. Steve specializes in delivering solutions in application lifecycle management, quality assurance, business process redesign, integration, and process transformations, operations services for IT, and project management as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve. Steve, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you very much, Jake. That was very kind. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to attend this webinar. As Jake mentioned, today's topic is leveraging Solution Manager for change and release management. Jake also touched on some of the housekeeping items. One thing I did want to mention is that we will be sending out a link of this presentation to everybody that attends or couldn't attend as well. So no need to pull out those notepads and start taking notes immediately. Everybody is on mute, and we have the chat window open. Jake will be moderating some of the questions that you have. Questions will be answered towards the end of the presentation just to make sure that we're able to bring it in on the time. Any questions that we've not been able to answer, we will reply to you most definitely by email. So please feel free to put in your questions or just comments in general, because we always like to get feedback on some of our presentations. So having said that, I'm just going to proceed with the webinar. So I'm just going to skip over a few of these slides, which Jake already spoke to, and get right down to the agenda of today's webinar. So the very first thing is what we're doing right now is talking about what we're going to cover, and then jump into some of the current challenges associated with change and release management, and then delve into the tools that are available in SAP Solution Manager to help you manage change and releases within your overall SAP solution. We jump into the benefits and features that are available in one of the tools, which is CHARM, or Change Request Management, and then round it out with some summary learnings of what we have discussed today, and finish up with Q&A at the end of the webinar. So to kick it off, let's jump into a polling question which will help us basically baseline why you have decided to attend today's webinar session. So the polling question is, what interested you in today's webcast? Some very nice stats on this question. We have about 32 participants that are here to gain some general knowledge about change and release management. We have a few customers that are looking for a change management tool, probably evaluating what's out there in the market. So these are good stats. So let's proceed with the presentation. So what we will cover today is we'll start off with identifying some of the challenges and constraints that a typical customer encounters with managing all of these different projects that are happening in their landscape, this change that is constantly happening in an SAP environment. We'll talk about the tools that SAP has provided to you via Solution Manager to help you manage these releases. And then we'll also talk about how to best leverage these tools, how to deploy them in a way that supports the ITIL standard processes. Okay? So a typical IT organization, an IT department, is challenged by the business to invest in new functionalities, to enhance the capabilities of software that's already available to them, and at the same time to support and sustain the growth of their organization. So, there was a recent study, not quite recent, McKinsey study in 2013, which basically came up with stats like 60% of the polled CEOs said, 15 to 50% of growth earnings in the next 5 years was expected to come from technology-enabled innovations. So innovations such as, leveraging mobile apps or cloud computing, big data for analytics and all of that good stuff. So, the business leans heavily on the IT team to basically not only support and sustain the company while it's running, but also to provide new functionalities. So there is a constant demand for change in the IT landscape. Then there are the challenges within the IT organization itself. I'm sure none of the participants right now are encountering any of this, but there is constant pressure from the business to reduce the cost of ownership. So, there's a massive investment that's made towards technology to keep the lights on, and the IT management is always being challenged to reduce the cost of ownership. And most of this cost comes through, the growing complexity of IT. There's more systems required. There's more people that need to be onboarded to support this new technology. And with all of that comes, lack of clarity in terms of responsibilities. I mean, I've gone to companies where, to throw out a few names, maybe there's Mark that's responsible for the run side of the house, and there is Rick that is responsible for the build side of the house, and each have their own agendas, and they're doing their own things, looking to leverage their own set of tools, and there is no cohesiveness when it comes to, okay, this is how a change is going to be executed in our organization. The transparency is not there. Management doesn't have a complete overview of all the changes being made. Unnecessary changes are being, executed in the environment. You have one team basically changing the screen to color blue, and the other team changing it to a color green, which I like. But these are the challenges within IT, that there is no standard process. There is no one tool that can help both sides of the house, the build team and the run team, to execute changes and report uniformly up to management. And then comes the added complexity of having to stay compliant with certain audit rules for the FDA rules, EU rules, or SOX compliance, all of that good stuff. So those are the challenges that typical IT organizations encounter. So just to summarize that, here's a list of typical tasks that organizations have to need to perform from a change and release management perspective. They need to have a central repository where all of their requests are put in, be it the requests coming in from IT or requests coming in from the business. That repository, whatever system that is, they need to be able to categorize it, validate those requests, review, and assign priorities to those requests. Once that is done, then you need to look at the resourcing side of the house and basically determine when you have the resources to deliver on those requests and when can that be promised to the business. And then once that is done, you then want to be able to perform the work, and when that is being executed, you want to be able to determine what is the risk to your organization, what is the impact to my current business processes, and all of that good stuff. Please feel free to add any points that you believe are tasks that are also required from a change and release perspective on this slide. Okay, so SAP, via its tool called SAP Solution Manager, which SAP built to basically help customers manage their SAP solution. And I just want to highlight, the stamp on the top right corner on the slide. If you are an SAP customer and are paying maintenance, Solution Manager is available to you free, and all the tools that we will refer to today are available free within Solution Manager. When I say free, it's available as part of your maintenance contract. There is some work that you will have to do to get these tools implemented, but for the most part, they are enterprise-level tools that can really help manage change and release in your organization. So, you can implement change in your organization without fear, simply because when you use SAP Solution Manager, Charm, or QGM, they interact with all of the other tools that are available in the whole wheel of Solution Manager. So you can leverage change impact analysis tools such as Scope and Effort Analyzer, Business Process Change Analyzer. If you want to do test management, there is a test management tool within Solution Manager, or there is third-party integrations with best-of-breed tools such as HP ALM and Worksoft and all of that good stuff. So the SAP has provided you with the tools to perform effective change and release management. Okay, and these apply not only just to SAP products, but you can also apply them to non-SAP products. And I'll put a little asterisk on top of that because some things can be done and some cannot if it's a non-SAP product. Okay. So let's jump into a quick overview of what these change impact tools are. The first one, not change impact, I should say, but change management tools are. The first one is Change Request Management, or CHARM. It helps you manage your change right from the request up to the deployment of the change into your productive environment. The tool can be modified to govern the change of both SAP and non-SAP applications, and it integrates with all of the other tools that are available in Solution Manager, such as ITSM or IT Service Management, test management, and change impact analysis tools such as BPCA and SEA, or Scope and Effort Analyzer. The tool is ITIL certified, ITIL Pink Elephant certified, I should say, and it's a browser-based tool, has a central repository. It even integrates with solution documentation, so you're able to store your documentation of your changes along with CHARM. The second tool, which is not so widely implemented, and we'll get into when you need to implement this tool, is Quality Gate Management, or sometimes known as QGM. It's CHARM-like, except that it doesn't have the CHARM UI and doesn't have solution documentation capabilities and all of that good stuff. Okay, so to answer the question, when do you use QGM and when do you use CHARM? So QGM, as you can tell, there is no document storage capabilities. There is no user interface like CHARM. There is a user interface, but it's not based on the same CRM 7.0 platform interface, right? There is no documentation of process step approvals. There is no email notification, and the analytics is also kind of limited. Now, all of this sounds very negative, but it's still a very powerful tool that places gates between your different systems in your landscape, and you're able to, define the conditions under which those gates can be opened and transports can be led through to the next environment. So typically, we see customers leveraging QGM when their corporate standards force them to use another tool for request management, right? So for instance, if they're using Jira or Remedy or ServiceNow or whatever that is, so the front end, when the request comes in, can be managed using those tools, and then QGM is leveraged just to control the flow of transports between the different landscapes. Okay, I'm sure there will be a couple of questions after this slide, but as a natural transition, let's switch over to another set of polling questions just to baseline, in the audience today, how is Solution Manager being leveraged in your organization? I have a total of 50 responses, and some of the stats on this is very interesting, but not uncommon. We're looking at close to 32 participants mentioning that Basis is using it for patching systems only, and we have gone to a number of customers that are utilizing Solution Manager just for that purpose. But this speaks to, again, leveraging the software that you already have invested in. So Solution Manager is definitely something that every organization that is running SAP should be leveraging, because SAP has spent millions of dollars developing this tool just to make your life on the side of managing your solution easier. So that is good, and let's proceed with jumping into Charm. So some of the key benefits of Charm are that, again, I mentioned it's an ITIL certified tool, so it leverages best practices for change and release management. Within Charm are built-in certain capabilities which help mitigate risks associated with making changes into your production environment. It integrates with the other tools available in Solution Manager, and you can leverage the rich functionality available in test management, change impact analysis, etc., in conjunction with what Charm does for you. And when implemented correctly, you will get end-to-end traceability of your changes, right from when the request is made to the categorization, prioritization of the change, to when it is being worked on, the transports, the objects that are modified as part of that change, all the way down to who approved the movement of that change into production. Okay, so let's start with looking at the overall process of Charm. So it's a very simple two-stage process. To oversimplify it, there's a request for change, which is the front side of it. So the requester, either from IT or from business, creates a request. You have the change manager that can be either the functional manager or functional manager with the basis team playing the role of a change manager that's taking ownership of that change, sending it, putting the meat behind it, as in, determining what is involved in that change, whether there's true, return on investment on making that change, etc. It goes to an approver via workflow for approval. Once it's approved, it's handed over back to the change manager that goes ahead and approves the work for it to be worked on in the change execution process. So it goes through and the change document is created, the developer / configurator works on it, saves their changes to the transport, sends it across into QA where the tester tests it, and then it goes right back to the requester for UAT and approval to move into production, and then the change is moved into production and it's confirmed that it is working correctly in production. So this is the best practice flow that Charm utilizes. Now, given that there are different types of changes that need to be made within the environment, SAP has given you out-of-the-box workflows and change types. For instance, you have the normal change, which is the change type that will be leveraged for regular maintenance of your system. So something that is going to be moved a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 6 months down the line into production, you leverage the normal change type for it. The urgent change is something goes bump in the night. If you're not able to create orders or fulfill orders, you need something to be fixed immediately, then you're going to use the urgent change. It bypasses some of the additional steps, not necessarily the approval steps, but some of the additional steps that would slow down the process. And also, it leverages a separate task list, and you can move your change into production faster than what you would be able to with the normal change and the main task list of a project. Okay. You have the admin change, which I like to call more of a documentation kind of a change. So somebody requested a firefighter access, or somebody made a parameter change on a server. You're just documenting that for an audit perspective, utilizing that change type, which is the admin change type. There is the general change type, and this is basically a larger documentation kind of initiative. So when you're swapping out servers or a hard drive or whatever it is, right? Some change that involves a backup plan, you would use the general change type on it. Defect corrections works in conjunction with the normal change, and that basically speaks to different phases of the project. So when you're in the test phase of the project, you do not want your QA environment to be constantly bombarded with changes. And so you move the maintenance cycle of a project over to the test phase, where it no longer allows transports to come into that environment. And if you do encounter a defect, the only transports that are allowed into the QA environments are transports that are associated with to a defect correction. Okay, so the only 3 change types that truly have TMS hooks or work with your transport management system are the normal change, the urgent change, and the defect corrections. Okay. Now we have a number of customers that basically said we have a non-SAP system and we'd like to keep the change procedure similar for SAP as well as non-SAP systems. You can leverage any and all of these different change types, but especially the normal change and urgent change, you can remove the TMS hooks and leverage them for non-SAP systems as well. So your change management is happening all within Solution Manager for both SAP and non-SAP systems. Okay. The next slide basically shows you an example of the standard workflow that SAP has provided to you as part of these different change types. These are highly customizable. It comes with a standard set of actions and conditions for execution of actions, but it's very easy to add additional actions, additional conditions, for triggering emails, etc. Speaking of emails, SAP has also provided you with pre-configured emails, which are based on the HTML email functionality from the SAP CRM 7.0 platform. Okay. So basically, there's a question right now that I see from Sankar. It's about Solman 7.2, which is in ramp up. You're correct about that. Do you think you'll be covering more of the differences? No, I am not going to be focusing on the differences between 7.1 and 7.2, simply because, as you mentioned, it is in ramp up. Even SAP has not finalized exactly what's going to be coming up. But in looking at the functionality that, just to give a little tidbit, looking at what's in 7.2 from a charm perspective, other than the process flow that we talked about, request for change and then getting into change execution, now they're going to have something called requirements, business requirements. That's a new change type that's going to be available up front, and then it will get into request for change and change execution. And then they have added a couple of dashboards to provide additional reporting. Okay, so moving further, So this is typical of what we see when we go into a customer. They have a number of projects running, and each project has a separate deadline, is going to go live on a separate date. So this kind of a structure makes it very hard to perform testing across all of these different projects. So resources are overburdened, testing is not done correctly, stuff breaks in production, firefighter has to be deployed. So what SAP has recommended is to go down to a what they call the two-value release format. And essentially what it is they're saying synchronize your go-lives. If you can synchronize your go-lives, you're going to be able to synchronize your testing. You're going to be able to perform regression testing on your system like it would be going into production. So if you know you're not going to have an issue when you're testing, you're not going to have an issue once you go live. Okay? This way you're able to maximize the value of your test resources. You'll be able to perform a good functional regression testing, and you will reduce the impact, overall impact that you will see in production. Okay? So how does Charm allow you to get to this two-value release model? Well, here you have your individual requests that are prioritized, that are categorized. And when you decide you have the capacity to work on them, you put them into changes. You are then, based on your capacity, able to define, okay, this is the volume of changes I can handle for release at this particular period. So you will put them all into a project, right? And they will go live together. So the deployment into production is going to be done simultaneously. The deployment into QA can be done simultaneously. You can test as in this is what production is going to look like, and this is what I'm going to test. So Charm helps you build that structure. But all of that seems a little rigid, but it really isn't. There is a lot of flexibility made available to you within Solution Manager as well. So for instance, if for some reason you had a change that was going to go live, in the month of, say, May as part of Project A, but then going down the line you realize that you've had problems with development or you've had problems with testing, you can at any point move that change into the next project, which would be the next release. So you have that flexibility. If you have, for some reason, a need to move one particular change first into production and then move the whole gamut of changes into production after. So for instance, in the BW world, right, there is always a need to go in and adjust metadata or whatever that is, right, that the BW team does. You are able to leverage what's known as preliminary imports. This is a functionality available within Solution Manager. It'll allow you to move just that one change into production and then move the rest of the changes as one big unit into production. So you have that flexibility. You even have the flexibility going down to the transport level. If for some reason you don't want a transport to be sent into production, but the other transports in that change document are approved, you can decouple a transport, or you can couple a transport from one change document into the next change document at will as well. Okay, so there's a lot of flexibility available within the tool which allows you to manage your overall releases. From a risk mitigation perspective, right, and this is also about FDA, also about FDA validations and all of that good stuff. One of the guiding principles is that approval needs to be secured prior to starting work, and approval needs to be secured prior to deploying stuff into production, right? So workflow can be enabled within Charm to secure those approvals. So here we have, and this workflow is built on SAP's workflow, so it's highly customizable. The email functionality is possible. It's possible for you to define delegates. Multi-level approval procedures are possible, and you can also assign delegates for securing that approval procedure. So there is no bottleneck, say somebody goes on vacation or whatever it is, right? And I hope all of you notice this little icon down here. We have a smartphone, but there is an app which you can also leverage to provide the approvals directly on the phone. So if you have a manager that is really, really busy and doesn't want to log into SAP to provide the approval, they can provide the approval directly on their mobile device for the change. Okay. Other functionalities available within Charm is the transport of copies. I'm not sure how much everybody knows about transport of copies, but what it does is it allows for cyclical testing of your change and reduces the number of transports that are being sent into production. So if you can see here, you have your transport. All you do is you release your task. When you say, okay, I want to test in QA, it creates a transport of copies, sends that into QA, you test against that. If you have an issue, you only need to add another task to your original transport. And only when you are happy with what you have tested in QA do you release the original transport from dev and send that into production. The second advantage of doing that is the objects that you are modifying stays locked till you are done modifying them, till you are happy with what version you want to send into production. Okay. One thing that is not on the slide, and I did want to include it and forgot about it, was the CTS Plus capabilities. So, as an SAP customer, you know that you're not only going to have ABAP changes, you could have also Java changes. Charm utilizes the CTS functionality to even manage the transportation of Java changes across the Java landscape. Okay. The next points talk about test management. The tool integrates with the test management module in Solution Manager, so you're able to execute testing directly from the change document itself. If you want to further reduce risk, you can execute BPCA on your change document. So all the transports within your change document can be included on a BPCA analysis, and you can determine cross-module impact. So for instance, you're making a change in FI, but for some reason you're impacting something in the MM module. You can figure that out when you leverage BPCA, and as you can see, you can launch the BPCA analysis directly from the Charm UI itself. So speaking of the UI, this is a screenshot of the UI. As you can see, the user interface is based on SAP CRM 7.0. Right off the bat, it gives you information about who's involved in the change, which project or release it is it's associated with, or it's going to go live with, what categories, right? So whether it's an ABAP change, a config change, whether it's a change in the BW system, the PI system, or the ECC system, right? It also has, delivery metrics. So what I mean by that is, what is the promised date? All of that information, or how long it's being worked on. If you have a need to be able to track all of that information, all of that is being tracked as well on every change document. And then down here you have the text log, and this is a log which you're able to enter in a text, but once you have entered in a text, you cannot go modify it. So it's a non-modifiable log, and that is one of the reasons why it passes the FDA validation standards, because it keeps track of every action that is being performed on a change document. Okay, so continuing with that same train of thought, we have here the text log, as I mentioned. There is also the processing log, the one shown at the bottom, which keeps track of each and every action being executed within your on the change document and in relationship to your managed systems. And then there is the application log, which keeps complete track of when the transport was released, who released it, when it was imported, who imported the transport into the next environment, and all of that good stuff. Okay. Continuing with the UI has been built very intuitively to give you all the information directly from the UI itself. You are able to log into your development environment from your change document in Solution Manager. There is no need for you to go perform your change directly in the dev environment. You can navigate directly from the change document. It captures all the information about all the transport of copies, tasks, etc., associated with that change document. In the landscape section, it will give you complete information about where your transport resides, what status it is in. Is it modifiable? Is it already been released? It will give you risks. So say you have released your transport, you've set unit test pass. Did it truly import the transport of copies into the QA environment? All of that is visible right there from the change document. And since it's available in the change document, you can pull it into your reports as well. So as you can see, you get a complete traceability of your changes as well. Okay, and this is about audit compliance. As you know, certain agencies such as the FDA and the EU, they basically consider an electronic signature to be the same as a handwritten signature. So if you are making changes and the FDA mandates that prior to making a change, you need to have an approval to work on it, and then prior to it being released into production, somebody needs to approve it, somebody needs to approve test management. Keeping track of all that paperwork is going to be very painful. If you implement Charm and you leverage functionality such as digital signatures, you can actually have the person providing the approval be mandated to also enter in their username and password once again, so that it's a confirmation that they are the ones providing the approval. Okay, so the digital signatures functionality is available within Solution Manager in the Solution Documentation module. We have taken that and made it available also within Charm for a number of our customers that are FDA that need to meet FDA validations, regulations, and this is a sample of what the audit log looks like, and also what the digital signature portion of it looks like. Okay. So that is just some of the features within Charm. So let's talk about what are the bells and whistles that come with the tool, right? I mean, so far everything has been about the process and management and the transparency and all of that. But the technical team, what are the tools that you're giving them to be able to perform their tasks easier? Well, there are a number of functionalities that what I like to call release management enablers. You have the RETROFIT functionality, which basically helps you perform to keep your dual landscape in sync. There is cross-system object lock, which also does the same thing, but is of a different functionality, and we'll talk about all of these in the next slides. You have downgrade protection, and you have critical object lock. So let's jump into a retrofit. So say you are a customer that is undertaking a big project, something like an upgrade or a brownfield implementation. There is a need to keep the lights on, which you will in your production landscape. So dev, QA, and prod. But then you have this massive project which you are working on in a separate dev environment and a separate QA environment, but that will ultimately end up going to production. So to keep the development work between your production support landscape and your project landscape in sync, SAP has provided you with a tool known as RETROFIT. Now, RETROFIT is not a magical tool. Okay, there are a number of customers that we have gone to and talked with, and they have heard of RETROFIT, and they think they just have to continue doing the work that they're doing, and RETROFIT is going to do it all for them. Well, what RETROFIT does is it keeps a log of everything that is being modified in the production support landscape. So that log is what you will have to then apply into your project landscape. Okay, so it's making sure that the integrity of the systems is maintained. It is also providing you with tools such as BC sets, software correction workbench, which will allow you to perform that retrofit into the project landscape. It's not doing it for you, but you have to still perform it. Now, there are instances where if there is no, for instance, if there's an object that is modified in the production support landscape, but it is not being modified in the project landscape, the transport of copies will make that change in your project landscape for you. But if you want to take those changes further down, because ultimately they have to get to production, you will have to perform the retrofit action, okay? But now you have a tool which is helping keep track of every change that's being made in your production support landscape, and it's helping you make those changes in your project landscape easily. So it is a very powerful tool that a number of customers leverage, okay? Next, let's talk about cross-system object lock. So again, here you have your n plus 1 or n minus 1, however you think of it, landscape. There's an object being modified on the production support landscape, and then somebody tries to make a similar change to the same object on the project landscape. What this tool does is when you modify an object in one of the landscapes, it registers that in a locking table. So when you try to make the change to that same object in the next landscape, it'll tell you, somebody's working on it, right? So you can have that as a warning that's letting them know that somebody's working on it, or you can have it as a hard error stop. No, you cannot make this change. You have to coordinate with the other team, okay? So that is cross-system object lock, which basically helps you keep your systems in sync. And then you have the downgrade protection. So this is a very powerful tool that prevents you from downgrading your system. So you have, you have somebody in India that's making modifications, and then you have somebody on the US team over here making modifications as well. You have two separate transports that have modified the same object. Transport 2 tries to get to production first. This tool is going to prevent that from happening because you're going to definitely downgrade the system once Transport 1 gets to production. So that's another tool that helps with development. And I have put a little picture of the actual error being triggered when somebody attempts to perform some kind of action that will lead to a downgrade of the system. Okay, and the final piece of the enablers is the critical object lock. So this is basically creating a blacklist of objects that are very critical to your business. So we have a customer that has this one report that goes to the C group, right, within the company. And they are very adamant about having that report on their desk Monday morning. So by identifying the objects that are related to that report and making sure that changes to those objects are authorized, you just have to create a blacklist of the critical objects, and Charm will protect modifications to those objects. So if anybody attempts to make a change to that object, it's going to stop them. So this can prevent, situations where the C group gets mad at the IT group. Okay. And then finally, we have amazing search and reporting capabilities available within Solution Manager. The biggest seller, right, from an audit perspective is no more tracking of changes within Excel. I mean, I've even worked for companies where everything that has been changed and been moved into production had to be stored, had to be recorded in an Excel spreadsheet is stored on the network drive somewhere, and if somebody forgot about it, then Basis would not move their stuff into production. I mean, it was this whole big drama, right? Charm will help you come down to everything is available within Charm. Any change, be it something that's systematic or something that was just done, in terms of a parm on the server, is tracked within Charm. There's rich functionality in terms of reporting, And in 7.2, you'll actually see a dashboard that comes through, which will help you provide more reporting as well on changes being made in your environment. So I'm just going to breathe here for a second and jump into the next slide, which is, answer some of the questions that relate to a typical implementation. So Charm can be implemented in a very agile fashion, performing basic baseline configurations, testing, user acceptance, and go live. Since everything is ITIL certified out of the box, there is very little that has to be done in terms of making the tool compliant to ITIL best practices. SAP has already provided you with the standard workflows and all of that good stuff. So all of that can be leveraged when implementing Charm. But there is need to perform certain amount of enhancements. So what we have is some common enhancements would be, label changes. They don't call people developers, they call them business analysts or system analysts or whatever it is, right? There might be some custom categorizations. It depends on how you would like to report about the number of changes, the types of changes that you have performed. Minor process steps. So if you want to add a unit test execution step, or if you want to put an integration test pass step, all of those minor modifications can be made to the workflow. Again, it's CRM 7.0 platform. All of that workflow changes can be made very easily. Email content, custom UI fields, all of that is very minor modifications, does not impact the overall timeline of the projects, which should be somewhere between 3 to 5 months. But where we do see the projects running a little longer are when special enhancements are involved, such as interfaces. So you want to interface ServiceNow or Jira or Remedy with Charm. That's when additional time is required. Or if you want to leverage the digital signatures for FDA-validated environments and audit reporting, that's when additional time might be required. Okay, so I see we have a number of questions. So I'm going to jump on to the final polling question. And the polling question is more along the lines of, we've been through the presentation, we've talked about the tools, its capabilities. What additional information would you want from us? So let's take a minute to get some stats. All right, so we have about 40 responses now, and this is very helpful in terms of what the audience is looking for. So let's go ahead and round this webinar up with some of the summary learnings. SAP has provided you with tools to manage your SAP landscape and non-SAP landscape. Charm can help resolve issues around unauthorized changes, building visibility into changes being made in the system. You're able to, it puts some rigor around, documenting the changes that are being made into the environment. You have various enablers such as retrofit, downgrade protection, cross-system object lock, etc., which help you make changes in your environment without impacting your environment. And Charm is an ITIL certified out-of-the-box tool that you can leverage today in your organization. It's the customization portion that takes time to implement, but you can utilize it out of the box, ITIL certified. Okay. Here's a slide with with my contact information. If you have any questions or need anything additional from us.